Hey everyone, welcome to this live Basecamp Office Hours. My name is Kimberly from the Basecamp product team, joined by Ashley from our customer support team. We are so glad that you are here joining us live. Let us know in the chat where you're from. I'm seeing lots of flags. Thank you for that. We love when people are joining us live and we know that you're here. Sometimes it's Ashley and I, we feel like we're talking to ourselves. So keep that chat active. You guys have found that. If you have questions during this session, you will see a question mark button kind of on the right side of your screen. Just below the chat icon is a question mark. If you have any questions for us, post them there. That will make sure that we see them. We'll answer some questions throughout the session. Any that we don't get to during the session, we'll answer at the end. This session is all about using Basecamp for software development. Obviously, we are developing software. We are using Basecamp to make Basecamp as well as Hey and our other products. So we're going to go through that today and show you actually some real projects that we use and have used here. We're going to give you some inside scoop into how we actually have things set up. So you guys will see that today. I think that's it for me. Ashley, do you have a couple of housekeeping things before we bring out our special guest?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that this won't be like a Basecamp 101. We won't spend a whole lot of time focusing on like specific tools or like an introduction to those kinds of things, but we have classes dedicated to that. So basecamp.com/classes, and you'll see everything in your time zone. And those are all recorded. So sign up for it anyway, even if it's at your 2 a.m. It'll still happen and you'll get the recording. And you can always ask your questions in advance, so they'll still be answered.
Perfect.
And then
Sorry to interrupt you. I just dropped a little link to sign up for our other live classes just below our pictures. If you'll click into that, you'll see all of the classes that we offer. Sorry to interrupt you, Ashley.
No, you're good. I was going to tell them that just if they need more specific help, to reach out after the session to support@basecamp.com. We're going to give that link a few times, but that is where you'll be reaching us if you feel like you have something that doesn't quite fit into whatever we're talking about today, or you just have a different situation that you want to discuss. We can discuss it there. We can discuss it over Zoom, so you have options for that. I will be in the chat the majority of the time and in the QA section, so keep asking questions as they come up, and we'll try to just get them in to our wonderful Michelle.
Perfect. And I have that email address up on the screen, so you guys have that for any future reference. And this session is being recorded. So the same link that you came to join this session, just a few moments after we're done today, the recording will be there. So feel free to pass it along to any of your colleagues or rewatch any section that you want to. The recording will be there for you. Okay, well, with that, I think we're going to bring out our special guest. We have someone from our product team joining us, one of our designers, Michelle Harjani. Michelle, thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about you, how long you've worked at 37 Signals, kind of what you do here. Give us the story of Michelle.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Michelle. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada. I'm a senior product designer at 37 Signals. I mainly work on Basecamp and Hey, and I've been here for over 4 years. It's so exciting to get to build things and have people use it. So, if you're a customer or if you're a potential customer, it's really exciting. Yeah, let's take a look at some of our behind the scenes.
Yeah, and Michelle's saying she's based in Vancouver, but she's kind of our digital nomad here. She's like always traveling the world, taking advantage of our remote work. So we're always like, where in the world is Michelle currently? Because some of her check-ins are, we never know where she is. So you are currently in your home base right now.
Yes.
Go.
Perfect. Well, we're going to jump right in. Just so you know, some of the work that we're going to show you, actually all of the projects we're going to walk you through are things that have already shipped, things that are in the past. So you'll see the full scope of what a project looks like kind of at the end. So Michelle, if you want to share your screen, let's start with our What Works project. So as most of you guys know, or maybe you don't know, we work here in 6-week cycles. So it's a 6-week cycle of work followed by a 2-week cool down. And during that process, every department head is doing a kickoff, so what they're going to be working on for that first 6 weeks. And then at the end, they write what we call a heartbeat, kind of summarizing that work. And all of our feature development kind of starts in this place. So Michelle, why don't you kind of walk us through where you get your work when you are kind of assigned work at the start of a cycle?
Yeah, so when the cycle starts, Brian, who's our head of product strategy, would announce, I think, on like the Monday, which features and which projects are on deck. So in this case, we're looking at cycle 3 for 2024. Here's what we have going on for Basecamp, and if you scroll down, here's where we have Hey. And today we're going to walk through Hey for Families, which was a full cycle project. That means it took the full 6 weeks, and we'll go through all the tools that we used along the way. So the kickoff is more of a high level just announcement of here's what we'll be working on. When we get into the project itself, Hey for Families, how it starts is we have a kickoff document in the message board that goes into more detail. What's the appetite? What's our solution? And marker sketch as well. Just some outlines of what we want in scope and what's out of scope, at least to start with. We can change that as we go. And so
Michelle, I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second.
we should go back to the
No. Let's go back to the What Works project really quick, because I want to show folks we have one designer, one programmer typically working on these features together. And that kickoff message shows who is going to be working on it. So for this particular project, Michelle is the designer on the project. Niklas is the programmer, and that's kind of where they're getting their assignment. So you're seeing this kind of for the first time once it starts, just to kick everything off. So as the designer programmer, you guys are getting those instructions at the same time everyone else in the company is learning, like, this is what's on deck for the next 6 weeks.
And then if I could just offer kind of how this looks from non-product teams. When I see this as a support person, I get very excited about what's going on. And then I click on that link because it's an all access project. So I don't initially have access like Michelle does to the project, but then I click on that link, I join it, and I become one of the 35 just following. So having an all access project in Basecamp is a really cool way to keep everybody involved when they want to be nosy like me.
Perfect. And while we're on that note about all access and who has access to this project, you'll see on here is Brian, the head of product, is active on the project. I've added myself. You'll see that I'm active. I didn't start active on this project. My work typically starts at the end of their work. So I put myself as on the project in the last week or so, just so I could follow along. There's someone from QA, Michelle. Our programmer is no longer with the company, but he would be on there as well. Those other 35 people are just everyone else in the company. Anyone can look at the project at any time, check in on it, see what's going on, but they're not getting announcements, notifications about every step that's happening in the project. True. Okay, anything here we need to go before we dive into each of the project tools? Actually, maybe we start at the top with that move the needle. We have some dates set for the start and end of the project. And Michelle, are those dates that you're setting? Is that a Brian setting? I know this was a full cycle, so it was natural, but some of those projects you guys work on don't take the full cycle.
Yeah. So the project start and end dates, in this case, it was the full 6 weeks from the start of cycle 3 to the end. When we have smaller cycle projects, then sometimes we get to decide which ones we'll take on first, and then we'll add the dates accordingly so that they would appear on the lineup in the order that we want to take them on.
Perfect. Okay, then maybe we just jump into the tools. So this is a pretty standard project in terms of the tools that we have for each feature. So let's start with the message board and what that kind of shows.
Our message board would start with the kickoff, and in the beginning, it really was just notifying Niklas and I, to notify 2 people here, and that's the extent of who's involved. But as the project goes on, everyone in the company is welcome to follow along, and sometimes if we mention people, they'll be added on as well. So we started with this kickoff and posted as a message. And this is something that Brian and Jason work on in a separate project, and then they bring it over when it's time to start. We have an idea for a solution and a sketch and some things that we actually said, here are the boundaries, what we're working with. But this is just a starting point. This can change, and it did, and we'll go into that in a bit.
And this was actually a super complicated project compared to some of those that are just like 2-week or 1-week feature projects. Like this one touched a lot of things.
Yes, yeah, we touched billing, which is always gonna it's a really big project, but I think we covered so much ground, and Yeah, so from this, it's an overwhelming amount of work to do. What
Yeah.
we do from this kickoff is to bring it in over to to-dos, and we started scoping the work. These are like
Mhm.
independent parts of the project that can, um, well, we can ship them independently, at least internally. So we started with one scope to manage family members. Means, okay, for Hey for Families, we want to be able to add family members, remove them, and we need to be able to handle plan changes. So this is upgrading your account from Hey for You to Hey for Families. And we'll need to reflect the plan changes on our support tools. And then we also have to consider what happens if you have multiple Hey accounts. And that is the case for some of our customers. So this is where we started, and we just started adding a bunch of to-dos between Nicholas and I. We can go into an example to do here for managed family members. I worked on like a form at first, and then we decided to like, let's redesign it. And so this is like a comment to do. I'd be like, oh, let's add placeholder slots. And I would post as a comment a link to the GitHub commit that I did the changes on and a screenshot of what it looks like. And from here, then like this is there, but it wasn't wired up properly. So then Nicholas took it and he marked it as done when it was wired. And if
Perfect.
anyone's following along, like in this case, Jason, he was able to like to chime in, like, oh, let's change the heading. But yeah, this is mainly how we work inside to dos and have it kept there for the record. In
Michelle, are you often screenshotting things and putting them within the project? Like it seems like a very easy way to go back and see what happened is like, oh, it's visually there. Is that
yes,
pretty typical?
for design, yes, I would post a link to the commit, and that would be so that I can go back and see, oh, this is when I changed it. And then I would also post a screenshot so Brian and Jason, who are following along, they could see what it looks like from the design side.
Perfect. And each of these to-do lists you're tracking on a hill chart. So for those of you who aren't familiar with hill charts, they're kind of our way to visually show progress on a to-do list. We have the first set, which is figuring things out. The second half of that to-do list is making things happen. And then you can manually plot how you think things are going along that list of to-dos. And Michelle has just gone through and shown you how those
So
to-dos
cool.
have moved over the project, which is awesome.
We update hill charts often in our cycle projects, and just to show like where things are on the hill, and we can go back and see where all the dots used to be.
And it looks like on this one, Nicholas has also like done a little write-up, short little write-up about where things are, what things have moved. He's tagged people who need to have information linked back to other things. So really this hill chart is a really great way to give a good update on like where do things stand.
Mhm. I typically see with other customers, like some people will use the message board, a specific category for that kind of work, but then other people will just prefer a hill chart because it gives that visual along with the actual update. Then they can notify anybody that they need to. It's the same text box everywhere else. Um, with hill chart updates, there's also mission control updates.
Mm.
So if I'm curious about the project, like the details of the project work, I would probably go to hill charts. But if I'm curious about the project overall, that bar at the top that's green, that's mission control or move the needle. And when we click on it, then we have a similar situation. We've got a visual and then we have some text. So I wonder, are we giving like bigger project updates on the report here?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
looks
this
like,
is more of a
yeah.
high level.
Okay.
And the hill charts were like all the nitty gritty, like, oh, here's where we are with every bit of the project, but then here's just how we're doing, and if we're on track, or if there's some risk, or if we're concerned. So you can choose.
Nice. That's great. So,
Lots of ways.
Michelle, is it a true statement that the majority of kind of the day to day in the Basecamp project is spent on the to dos?
Yes, we work in to-dos for planned work, and then later we'll see card table for more of reactive work. And that's when we get feedback and ideas later on towards the end of the cycle.
Awesome. Anything else on to dos we need to go to before we jump into the schedule? I feel pretty good about that. Ashley, anything we need to go through?
Let's go to the
Perfect.
schedule.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. For the schedule, for the project, we would add every meeting that would be related to the cycle. And so in this case, we had our kickoff on April 30th, and then I was out for a week or 2 weeks, and then Nicholas was out, he was on call. And the extent of all the meetings that we had in this 6-week project was a kickoff between Nicholas and I, and then Nicholas and Jeff had a technical discussion. And then I had 2 reviews with Jason and Brian. Here's like a walkthrough call, and then we did another review before we shipped. And then I had one with Michael on our QA team just to go through every step together before we go live. And sometimes when we have these design walkthroughs, I would then like recap, I would post everything new, something we would increase the scope, I would add that to our to-dos, and then I would share that in our project chat. And here are links to the to-dos that were changes from our call. In the design review, in this case, we did actually increase the scope. We said things in the kickoff that we're not going to do certain invites for if you're not yet a Hey customer, and we decided to change our mind on that. We decided to also change our mind on prorating the amount that you're paying. And so these are increased in scope, and we would add that in our to-dos as an additional scope and start tracking that on the hill chart as well.
What's nice about the schedule tool is that it is a schedule that's specific to this project only. So Michelle and Nicholas and Brian are kind of on this calendar, but I don't get notifications. Like it's not on my calendar anywhere because I'm not involved in this project. So it's nice that it can be segmented out in Basecamp. I think that's super helpful. Okay, perfect. So we have gone through the message board tools, to-dos, and schedule. Obviously the chat, you mentioned that as well. And sometimes chat is like not all that active. Most of the discussion is happening in other places. But chat, I think we use internally just for kind of casual, quick discussions.
Yes. And I think the other thing about chat is we put a timer on it. So after 2 years on our project chat, then it gets cleared out, whereas to-dos, it will stay. And so I can go back to projects I've shipped 4 years ago and be like, oh yeah, this was the decision we made. And because it was all logged in a to-do, and we can search.
Yeah, that's smart. That's like a good tip. Nothing that needs to be permanent should be in chat.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then we have a card table. Now, tell me this, does this card table tool start in every project, or is it something that's added later?
We would add this later when when it's time to QA. Then we start a card table on our project, so our QA team can add ideas and things I found in triage. So we can be like, oh, something doesn't look great, and then give some details. And then from triage, then we take a look at this and decide if we want to do it or if we want to move it to not now. And it's okay. We are sometimes we can be ruthless in adding things to not now and saying this is outside the scope of our project. We're not going to do this. And from here, we would be able to mark it down as it's in progress and I'm working on it. And then when it's time for Michael and Gabrielle to test, we would move it over to QA to confirm fix. And they're both watching this card table, so they would know that, oh, this is ready to get tested again. And then after that, we can move it to done. And if there are cards at the end of the cycle that we don't get a chance to fix, and sometimes they're in not now, what we can do is like, oh, this didn't come out and we didn't have time for this. What we can do is we can go to move and move this to one of our bug boards where we track all our Hey project, like bugs and
quick wins,
and
smaller
quick win
things.
ideas.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
Michelle, since you mentioned other projects, can we jump to the QA project? Because before it gets to this place of QA
yes.
adding cards to this card table, there is a process where Michelle is saying it's ready to be tested. So kind of walk us through that. This is a separate project with the QA team.
So our QA team has this card table. Whenever we're ready for having something to test, we'll add a card here, and then they'll be notified this is ready, and then they'll mark it in progress when they're working on it. And when they've given all their feedback, then they move it over to pending input, and when we're done, we move it over to done. Another project where we would notify another team is support. So before a feature ships later, I would add in our support help pages like, oh, we're working on this Hey for Families. Let's add a card, request for updates, go through all our help pages and see what needs updating. And then after that, they will handle that. So those are some separate projects that we would involve other teams and notify them by
There's a
occurring.
question from the audience that seems appropriate now.
Yeah,
They're,
jump
they're,
in.
they're asking when typically is it time for QA or support? So within our 6 week cycles, you are you have to make sure that you're getting to QA at the very end of the cycle. Do they use those last 2 weeks, or we want to get them involved like as soon as possible?
That's a great question.
When we are close to shipping and we want to test and make sure everything works and make sure we've covered all the cases, then we'll open up a QA card.
Mhm.
It's not typical that we would do like a complete redesign or anything from QA. It's more just to check and make sure that everything looks good before we go live. In this case, for Hey for Families, like we did a QA probably around like week 4, I would say, and then we shipped it internally so that only our accounts have access to it. And when we were ready, then we would remove the internal flag and make it available for all Hey customers.
Nice.
And that process, the kind of feature flag, us releasing it internally, doesn't happen for every
No.
feature. It's really for bigger, more complicated features where we want to like really use it in action to make sure things feel right. It's probably less frequent than it is than we actually do it.
Yeah.
But this was a big project.
Yeah, we had to up so we can look into doors really
Oh
quickly.
yeah,
We had
let's do
like
that.
separate links. So we have a door to test in beta, and so opening that link here will be able to test it for our accounts. And then we have a door to GitHub where we link to the pull request in Hey and Queen Bee, our billing system. And so I think that was one of the other reasons we shipped this internally is because we had a couple things to make sure it was live first. Like we updated Queen Bee and then Hey reflected, and once it's good, then we'll calmly release it for everyone.
Yeah.
And then the week of the launch, like before we go live, I would post an internal announcement where I go into all the details, what we ended up shipping. Here's the screenshots. Here's like, for in this case, we announced the price here as well. And this is just everything related to Hey for Families that would be beneficial for the rest of the team to know and for support to use as a reference. If they had a customer who emails after this ships like, oh, what about this? How can I switch? And so you can reference this one document with everything in it.
This document is so important to me.
Yeah.
In general, every time someone posts this kind of internal announcement, it is so important. It's one of the best things that we do to just kind of maintain transparency, especially when you are working remotely and asynchronously.
I was going to say, I think for people who are not ingrained in the day-to-day process that's happening, this is what informs the entire company of like, this is how it works. And oftentimes how it finishes working and the pitch are slightly different. Things might have changed. So even if you've read it in the kickoff, this document is the more important document because it's like, this is what actually is happening. And Michelle, you're always so thorough with your write-ups. You get a prize for that. Let's go back to doors really quick because I want to answer this question. Someone asked, how many Basecamp doors do you use versus native Basecamp feature sets? So we are linking to some outside sources. You see she has 2 GitHub links, but then we're also using doors to connect to other projects to make it easier for people to find. So this deployment message, her announcement internally, they're just other Basecamp pages, Basecamp message board posts, but we're linking to them with a door to make it simple for people to find. And then it looks like there's a Google Sheet as well.
Yes, we had a Google Sheet to track the different plan changes and make sure we cover all the scenarios. And then I had a doc here as well for when I was looking into Hey for Families, what it would be like if we had kids accounts. We didn't need this at the end, but it was just an ongoing doc and all the legal things that we would need to comply with.
Yeah.
That relates a little bit to the question by Alex. Do you use Basecamp for note-taking? Important bits of information that you want to keep for reference like that, or write-ups? I mean, I think that document alone makes a lot of sense to just have within this project. But when you are writing that internal announcement, are you writing it as you go, or everything's done? You're like, let me just put as much information in the announcement at the end.
Well, the internal announcement takes a couple days to write, I would say. I would put everything in it and
Awesome.
then also use that as the base for if I were to tell QA, oh, this is ready to test, and give them like a high level, all the details about it. But I'd also link to the internal announcement, even the draft, because you can share draft links.
Can
And I would also say, Alex, to answer your question, and you guys chime in. I think we probably all use, we have like a private Basecamp project. I know I have a Basecamp project no one else has access to, that I like write notes to myself about things. We have to do weekly check-ins, like what we've worked on this week. I have that in a kind of private note-taking place, if you will, but it's in Basecamp in a project no one else can see before I'm actually posting it publicly.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think most of us do use Basecamp projects in that way, just to like take notes for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Michelle, this has been very thorough. This is actually one of the more complicated projects, I feel like, to walk people through, but it's helpful because you can see all of the things. Question for you: do you think that there's any, is it just to-dos is the most important tool for you guys?
Yeah, to collaborate, we would use to-dos to track all the work.
Yeah, we often have people ask about to-dos versus card table, when they should use one or the other. I think for all of our feature development, we're heavily using to-dos for each aspect of the feature and then card table for QA. I think that's a pretty clear distinction for us.
I think I see a lot of people, once they figure that out, they start to get hung up on dates. They're like, okay, well, we need this to ship on this day, but how do I set my to-dos to the right times? But I didn't see that any of your to-dos had due dates, did they?
Mm, good
I think we
question.
had
Like, is there
one.
like an actual clock for you that knows when things are done? Because
We don't normally use due dates.
I
I
know
had only one, and this is just because when a feature in Hey ships, I add like a new tag on it, and then when it's time to remove it, like I would set a date, a few weeks later. That's my reminder to remove it, but that's the only time I would use a due date on a project.
that's interesting. I wonder because overdue to dos becomes a conversation a lot with other customers and like trying to manage other people's work. But I think just by the nature when you're not using due dates and there's like nothing that is overdue, it's just kind of we're all pushing for the same goal. I don't know how it lines up so well, but that's where those hill chart updates become so much more important because that's where we're saying this is what the status is. And that's kind of why that hill chart itself is valuable, that it's not automatic because checking something off doesn't necessarily mean we are like
Mm-hmm.
an incremental, like a decided increment of a distance forward of making progress. Like maybe that thing like took us from here, but actually kind of brought us back because we have now so much more to figure out. Or maybe it like completely launched us forward and we're actually almost done. So those hill chart updates, if you haven't tried them, please try them.
Yeah, Ashley's a huge hill chart fan. I didn't used to be a hill chart fan until I like really started using them. I'm like, okay, I get it now. Okay, let's jump into Michelle. Unless there's anything else you want to show, we can jump into some of these questions that we haven't answered.
Oh, maybe there's like another example of a project where I would typically add screenshots to hill chart updates as well to
Oh,
show
yeah,
like where we
awesome.
are and what's left, and in this
Ooh,
case, a screen recording. But yeah, it's common to
that's good.
to share just where we're at, what's
Yeah.
left in the hill chart update.
And then also, so I kind of mentioned that all of us have to do like these check-ins during the week of what we've been working on. And Michelle, I often see you in your check-ins linking to these hill chart updates. Like, this is what I worked on, and here's the hill chart, like linking
Mhm.
to it, going back to that, reporting what you're doing, and then linking back to other projects. We do that so frequently in
Yeah.
Basecamp.
The check-in that Kimberly mentioned is like this, in what works, we have asking each team, what have you worked on? This is an example when I was working on for Hey for Families. I always add emojis in mine and links to the things that I worked on. And it's good to be able to go back and reference.
I mean, that is, I say it and you bring up the example.
I know.
That's perfect.
Look at all the celebration underneath there.
I
These are
know,
one
it's
of the
great.
better things in Basecamp. I love it.
If you guys have questions for Michelle about how she's using Basecamp for software development, or for Ashley or I, anything Basecamp related, drop them in that question section. We're just going to knock out some of these questions. I think we kind of have answered this, but I'm going to post it on the screen anyway. What does a typical designer developer feedback loop look like in Basecamp to get to the end goal in 6 weeks? I mean, I feel like we're saying it's heavily based on to-dos and the collaboration within the to-dos. One thing that is so great about Basecamp is all the discussion stays with the item. So if you're discussing a to-do, it's all connected to that to-do. Everything kind of is in one place. Is there anything I'm missing there, Michelle, in terms of like your collaboration with your developer?
I think it's, yeah, mainly in to-dos. We do have a call in this project. I think I talked to Nicholas once on a call,
Mm.
and there are other cycle projects where we would have maybe more of like a check-in call at some point midweek in the, like maybe week 3 of a 6-week project. And then I've on my current one where it's like more new product development, I'm talking to my programmer Joseph every week,
Mm.
and we're just checking. And it's not like a scheduled call. It's like, oh yeah, let's catch up today, and the next week could be on a Thursday versus a Wednesday, and it's just more ad hoc. But yeah, we don't have a lot of meetings. Everything is written as much as we can, and it's great. It's also makes it a lot. It makes it very searchable.
Yeah. It's true. In fact, the fact that we're looking at a 2024 project and can find everything we needed to know about how that product was developed, how that feature was developed, is
Yeah.
kind of speaks for itself. Okay, a question from Liz about documents, and Ashley, you might jump in here. Where can you save company documents that the dev team can save documents in? So there is a documents tool that anyone can add documents to. You can see that docs and files. If we click on that, we can
Show
just
the Hay project actually, because we
perfect.
have more documents here related to Hay, and I think the most important one here would be the basic model walkthrough. There's like a video that Rosa filmed
Awesome.
to walk through our Hay code base, and it was recorded once, uploaded here, and every programmer that works on Hay, or every designer as well, we would all watch the video, and it's here.
That's great. And then company-wide, we also have, company-wide project where there's documents. So anywhere that you have a group of work, any kind of project can have its own docs and files tool.
Mm-hmm.
So Liz, hopefully that answers that question. Let's see. Liz, is there a contact person that can help us with how to use Basecamp for software development? Well, hopefully this recording helped, but also let me pop up on that screen that email address. You can always reach out to our support team. support@basecamp.com. Happy to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Any follow-up questions you guys have, support@basecamp.com. Okay, let's see. This one from Ankush. I hope I'm saying that right. How can we recover chat group ping if the team members are no longer associated with the project? They're not in Basecamp, but previously they were the active members and had conversation in group pings regarding projects with graphs, links, everything on the same group ping. Ashley, might be a question for you. But now, as they're not in the Basecamp, that group ping chat is also lost.
Nay, it shall not be lost. First, why group pings? Why not just put things in the chat and then set the chat not to expire? So are we I wonder if we're actually talking about a group ping or if we're talking about chat secretly. So that's a specific question for you. And then whether they were active or not, like whether they're in the account or not, that conversation remains. So whenever somebody's removed or whenever they leave the account, then nothing from what they've done gets deleted at all. So you're actually totally fine on that point. I still have pings with people who are gone. They're there. And then was there another aspect to that question? It left.
I did make it leave. Hold, please.
With group pings, links, everything. Again, if those group pings are that rich in content, perhaps they should be a project. And that way it's significantly easier to be searchable. And yeah, if you feel that it's lost, support@basecamp.com.
Yeah, great. But that is a really good point about keeping things that don't need to be permanent. Chat, it's fine. But if it needs to be recorded and saved and live on, another place is probably better for it.
Yeah, so much more context in adding your comments to to-dos and adding the conversation to to-dos, because then you have, like a basis of what this is about instead of like a stream of consciousness from, do I need the information from April 30th or from, June 10th? So try to consider to-dos.
Perfect. Okay, Michelle, I think this is a good question for you from Bruno. How do you fit tasks that are inherently uncertain into the workflow? For example, doing something technical you've never done before, or a task that depends on the progress of third parties. I think the answer would be that we just are continuing to iterate on those to-dos and adding new things, but maybe that is not your answer. What do you do for things that you're not quite certain about when you're starting a project or a new feature?
To take your best shot at it and then just iterate from there. For design side, I would sometimes get a head start and work on things. It's not functional because our programmer hasn't wired it up, but it's there. There's something to look at, and if we can, we just start from there. Then there are some cases where our programmer would get a head start and wire things up, and then I will iterate the design as we go.
Can we go back to that hill chart report? Because I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, we didn't start with all of those to-dos on the hill chart. It started with a smaller subset of tasks.
Yeah, it started off much smaller in scope as well, and then it just kept going.
Yeah, and that often happens is like there's some to-dos that start the project, and then as things are kind of in the middle, it's like, oh, we need to add a whole nother task list or to-do list on another area of the project. And this goes to Magesh's question. Can you show one example of updating a to-do when viewing the hill chart? So can you, maybe it's a blank project, a starter project, how you actually go and move to-dos? I don't know that you want to mess this one up.
Oh, like we can
Like
add another.
make a new
Yeah.
list. Perfect.
Yeah, we can add another scope.
So Michelle's adding a new to-do list, giving it a name, adding whatever task we wanted to add to it.
You can actually track it on the hill chart at that point, or you can decide later.
This screen. And then we'd go into details. And from here, I can assign it to myself or assign it to our programmer when we're ready for wiring, or it could be a separate to-do that it's like, well, wire this. And then, so this would be a design task, this would be a programming task, and we can mark them done independently. Either works. I think sometimes we just keep it together to be like, oh, this is the design, and I think that was the example we had before. I'll bring it up.
And then could you actually add the scope to your hill chart?
Sure.
And then show how you would like update that hill chart?
So from here, so we have a to-do list. We can go into the overflow menu and say, track this on the hill chart. And then it starts here. If we go back to all the to-dos, then we get to see this new scope and then move it along the hill.
Perfect. So you can decide which of those to-do lists are tracked on the hill chart, and some can be tracked, some cannot be tracked. You can track them all. You get to decide how you use those, and then you can just hit that update link, and then manually move that dot. We often have people, Ashley, I'm sure you get this question a lot of like, how can it be automatic? How can like you check off a to-do and it automatically moves? And we always say like, it is intentionally manual. Like we want you to have to think through, how far along is this? How is this going? Where on this continuum does this task list fall? Making the actual conscious human decision versus an automatic one.
Definitely. And if you actually like check off design this screen, that little circle next to scope will automatically adjust 50% completed. So there is like a small visual to know about, but I think it's just more important that we be able to identify, are we figuring this out or making it happen? Also, people tend to ask, how do I track individual to-dos, not my lists? And you cannot. So you'll just need to think about am I structuring it in a way that works for me, or do I want to be able to use the hill chart because that would work even better for me? And thus adjust your things so that you move things from to-dos to lists.
Okay, let's go to Liz's question. And I think, Liz, it sounds like we might work a little bit differently than you. Your question is, do you add your developers as clients, or they have to be added as contractors, vendors? I'm curious to know what each category have access to. So our developers are internal employees. So they are added as employees and added as part of the team. They're not added as clients or in any other way. So developers and designers were all on the same team. So they have all the same access. It sounds like you might be using outside contractors for your developers. If that is the case, then you just need to decide how much you want them to have access to. If they're set up as a client, then you can decide for every element of your project what they can see and what they can't see. So you can turn on and off tools. They can see a message board or not see the message board. They can see a to-do list or not see a to-do list. If they are set up as clients, that's the only category where you have that option to control access. If they are a collaborator or an employee, they have access to see everything. Anything I'm missing, Ashley, there?
No, that's basically it. I will provide the permissions page. I think that would be helpful to look over.
Perfect. Okay, you guys, we're wrapping it up with this last question. Jason, what's something in Basecamp 5 you're looking forward to? You know we can't tell you that. But this is a good transition into our community. Jason is one of our members of the Basecamp community, which is a gathering of Basecamp users. Ashley heads it up. Ashley, I'll let you talk about it, and then I will post a link to it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful space, especially for some of these questions coming up where other people approach software development differently. And so people are using Basecamp to handle that and to handle a ton of other industry-specific and personal life needs. And so the community is like 2,000 plus individuals, some of us who have been pro Basecamp for like 20 years, some who just found out about Basecamp like 20 minutes ago. And so having the diversity of experiences is really interesting, a great place to ask questions and kind of learn more about what other people are doing and how they handle their work.
Excellent. I put just below us, below that screen, is a link to join the Basecamp community. I also dropped it in the chat.
Yes.
If you are interested, if you're a Basecamp user and want to collaborate with other Basecamp users, click that link. You'll fill out a quick survey. Ashley and Robert on her support team head up that group, and they will let you in.
We will.
But it is a great place. You guys, final call for questions. Anything that we can answer for you before we wrap it up today? Michelle, thank you for this. So thorough.
My pleasure.
So much
I do have
information.
a written version of another project, and this is on our updates blog where I walk through our Basecamp account for when we worked on Hey Bubble Up. And this was back in 2022, but it goes through all the shaped up concepts and how we start from the kickoff and all the different tools that we use. So I'll paste a link in the chat if you want to check it out.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I'll send that out to everybody too who has signed up so that they'll have the link in their email as well.
Amazing. So Ashley's going to follow up our session today with an email. So you'll have links to a few things that we talked about, and you'll also have a direct way to just reply to that email if you have any follow-up questions. I think that we have wrapped it up. You guys, thank you for joining us. Thanks for watching, learning with us. And again, if you have any questions at all, reach out to us at support@basecamp.com. Happy to help you guys. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, guys.
Bye for now.